Have you ever felt like your prayers are just a one-way street? You know, you're talking, but you're not really sure if anyone's listening or how you're even supposed to hear a response? Well, today we're going to dive into a really powerful, structured method for prayer that's designed to change all that, to turn that monologue into a real, dynamic, two-way conversation.
So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll look at the core idea of the method itself, then we'll get into the practicals, how to prepare your heart, how to make that crucial shift from just talking to actually listening. And then we'll see how it all comes together through the big themes of unity, the tough work of forgiveness, and finally, a prayer for real harmony. So where does this all come from? Well, this method was developed by a really influential spiritual guide whose life's work was basically teaching people one thing: how to hear from God. And these principles, they've been used for decades for a very simple reason. They just work. They really do deepen the whole experience of prayer. At its heart, the biggest shift here is moving away from this idea that prayer is just us showing up with our list of demands. Instead, it's about creating a space to genuinely listen, to actually ask what's on God's heart, and then to line up our own prayers with that agenda. It's a real conversation.
Okay, so before you can listen well, you have to get your heart ready. The instructor who teaches this method has a great way of putting it. He says, this first part is like setting the stage. You're clearing out the clutter, you're tuning the instruments, all so you're ready for the main event.
And here's the part that might surprise you. Preparing your heart sounds like it could take, forever, right? But this whole powerful, essential setup, it's designed to be done in about 3 minutes. It's not the prayer itself, it's just the critical warm-up.
To make it quick and easy to remember, the process is broken down into these 4 key actions. Think of them as 4 declarations you make to get your heart and your mind on the same page. Let's take a look at what each one of these really means. First up is confession. And this is basically just asking a quick, honest question. Is there anything blocking the line between me and God? This isn't about some long, drawn-out session of beating yourself up. It's just a quick check-in to see if there's any static on the line, anything that's stopping you from praying clearly. And to show just how real this is, the instructor told this incredible story. He was getting ready to speak, and his prayers felt totally stuck. Nothing was coming through. For 2 hours, nothing. Then he realized he'd criticized a spiritual leader months before. And it wasn't until he actually went to that leader and asked for forgiveness that the line was clear again. So this whole 3-minute prep boils down to a rapid-fire series of declarations. You confess anything that's in the way, you invite the Holy Spirit's help, you rebuke any spiritual junk that's trying to interfere, and then, and this is key, you surrender your own agenda to make room for God's. Okay, so with the heart prepared, we get to the absolute core of this whole practice. This is the big pivot. It's about moving from our turn to speak to a posture of active, intentional listening. I mean, look at the difference here. So often we come to prayer with our list, right? Here are all the things I need you to fix for me. This method completely flips the script. We show up, we prepare our hearts, and then we ask, what do you want to talk about? What's your agenda for our time together? The instructor then asks the group this exact question. It's so simple, but it's incredibly focusing. It gets everyone to tune into the same frequency. The idea isn't for 100 different personal messages, but to listen for a single, unified theme for the whole group. And in one session where this happened, a theme absolutely emerged as the group started listening. Out of that quiet, one word started popping up for people over and over again: unity. And just like that, it became the focus for everyone's prayer time. But unity wasn't just this flat, one-dimensional thing. As people started sharing what they were hearing, this really rich, beautiful picture started to form. For some, it was all about personal responsibility. That unity has to start with me. For others, it was about forgiveness, love, and seeing everyone as part of one body. This kind of listening, it just opens the door for these really profound images. One person shared this picture that came to them: the sky and the sea. They're separate, but they reflect the same color, and they look like they touch at the horizon. And that became this powerful metaphor for the kind of unity they were praying for. For another person, the message wasn't poetic at all. It was more like a direct, personal challenge. The thought that just wouldn't leave them was that They couldn't just sit around and wait for other people to create unity. It was something they had to start, right inside their own heart.
So, as the group kept praying into this idea of unity, the conversation naturally went deeper, and it led them to the hardest but most powerful part of the entire session, the unavoidable and, yeah, often painful work of forgiveness. Leading by example, the instructor shared this deeply vulnerable story. He suddenly realized he was still carrying the pain of a betrayal from a colleague that had happened 21 years earlier. He thought he was over it, but right there, in that moment, he knew he had to forgive him all over again. And he had to ask for forgiveness himself for holding on to that grudge for so long. And then another person shared a story that was just heartbreaking. They felt this nudge to reach out and forgive someone, but kept putting it off, wanting to do it on their own terms. When they finally sent the message, they found out it was too late. The person had passed away. And that painful story just crystallized this huge takeaway for everyone in the room. When you get that prompting to forgive someone, you have to act on it now, because putting it off can have consequences that last forever. Delayed forgiveness just isn't forgiveness. Another person talked about the incredible weight of anger they were carrying towards a coworker. And during the prayer time, they had this image of God already holding that heavy burden. And he just asked them, "Why are you carrying it too?" And in that moment, they were finally able to just drop it and feel free. So after all of that really deep and, let's be honest, difficult work of forgiveness, the session shifted towards a final practical application. It was all about taking these huge principles of unity and reconciliation and bringing them right into our most immediate, everyday relationships. The instructor led the group through this really tangible exercise. He had couples turn their chairs to face each other, and for a few minutes, they just looked into each other's eyes in total silence. Then they were asked to pray a blessing over their spouse, and it all ended with an embrace. It was just this beautiful, practical way of living out reconciliation starting right there at home. And so, this entire guided method leaves all of us with a final, really challenging question. It pushes us beyond just one prayer session and makes us ask, what would it actually look like to take these principles of preparation, of listening, of unity, and of radical forgiveness, and use them to create real harmony in our own families, our workplaces, and our communities? What does it take?